Okay, so check out some of the fruits I got yesterday because it's like past midnight now, so it's technically yesterday. And like a bunch of like water, and then some supplements, some whey protein and creatine, which I don't regularly use, but I will. I will. I guess I'll start earlier than my flight to Europe. And then my father bought some like seasoned and dried bread, some pita bread. But anyways, so the fruits we have here: peaches and bananas, grapes, green color. Those are clementines. Those aren't oranges. And we have kiwis. These are dried dates, which my father really enjoys. I enjoy like wetter dates, but he likes dry dates. So that's, because he likes to drink tea and have dates. And then cherries. So my favorite fruit is probably the watermelon. And I like cherries. And what else? I think I'm trying to like the banana like more and more. The banana in some instances tastes like cake to me, which is fun. But yes, so about I misspoke. I believe it was about $50 for this much fruit, which I'm using the Philippine peso later in the video because I don't remember the Vietnamese dong, and those were the most recent currencies I've used because of my travel. So in Philippine pesos, I guess the price would be around 3,000 for like this much fruit, excluding the bread over there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of fruit at like this amount, 3,000 pesos. But remember, it's like way easy to make 3,000 pesos in the USA compared to even in the South, which I'm in the former Confederacy, which I'm in, which doesn't pay as well. It's easier to make 3,000 pesos, of course, Philippine pesos, than it is in the Philippines. So like our minimum wage per day is something like, what is it, 6,000 pesos, or like somewhat under the federal minimum wage is different than what humans really get for minimum wage, but you're talking like you can make like just under $100 in some scenarios, and so we're talking like 6,000 pesos. So like 4 hours of work would provide this much fruit. Anyways, on to the video, which I am recording this after. Hello everybody, so Geoffrey again, my character on 14 Years Later, and I should mention once again, I think I mentioned in a different video, I must have, Geoffrey isn't from like Jeffrey Dahmer or Jeffrey Epstein, the name of the character I have. Geoffrey is from Geoffrey Chaucer, who was an Englishman author from several centuries earlier. And it was based on a quotation, I hope I say this correctly because I have a bad memory, but tide and time wait for no man. So 14 years later, and my life sort of passed by sort of quickly, and I'm in my late 30s now, so just wanted to continue with the character. Anyways, so I wanted to describe a sort of interpretation of what my father and my mother, and who was wife of my father, and what the type of women who try to become wife to me or have, the type of relationship I'm describing different. Well, let's say wife. What our socioeconomic class is, sort of, and I am, a Shia Muslim. And I have ancestors who are, of different populations, but I'm basically father's side Shem, Middle Eastern, and mother's side Japheth, Dravidian, Middle Eastern. So yeah. Just my hands are getting better now a little bit. I put a new hydrocortisone cream. So anyways, and they got better like really quickly, as opposed to the other, another doctor's recommendation of another ointment, which like was causing an extreme amount of pain. But so, okay, I am of the USA, so I have to mention this. I was born in the USA, and I am of the former Confederacy in the USA, which the Confederacy are those who were the slave owners, versus the, I'm actually of a state. I was born in a state and raised in a state. Though at age 18, I went to California, to UCLA, as a university student, which is a different scenario than the American Civil War. But I was born in a state where the Confederacy is their flag in the Civil War, the American Civil War, versus my favorite U.S. president, possibly. I would guess, possibly. I don't know. I don't know if George Washington would be my favorite president just because he was the first president and something of the sort. So my favorite president is likely Republican Abraham Lincoln, even though he was assassinated, unfortunately, because I am a Republican now. I was a Democrat until my late 20s, and I was born into a Democrat family, and then I became a Republican in my late 20s, partially because Donald Trump became president and I wanted to support him, and also partially because his son-in-law, I guess, is a Middle Eastern Jewish guy of God's chosen people, of the Jews, Jared Kushner, and he had like married, I guess, the most attractive of Donald, no, not the most attractive, the least attractive of Donald Trump's daughters. So anyways, yeah, no, because I support like Middle Eastern humans generally. It's support in terms of like mind and hands, but not like monetary support. So anyways, so as a Shia Muslim, and I'm held like as a slave by essentially 4 different groupings, Africans, and then African descended West Africans in North America and South America. So like black skin type humans in the USA, for instance, Englishmen, and also the Amerindians have jumped in, and I guess this is sort of where I drew the line, because when sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but when the Amerindians want to punch me and beat me up and rob me and everything in like gangs, I have like, there's like a limit. I can understand like blood gang members shooting at me in Peru, harassing me, and like Crips, I guess like making fun of me or whatever. But and like Englishmen being like racist non-skinheads against me and whatever. But I can't accept the Holocaust, of course. But you know, as a Muslim, I can accept a disproportionate amount, despite what you would think. But at like just under 6'2", and at the moment 315 or so pounds, so like 142 kilograms, and like I'm fat, but like I'm not like the smallest guy on earth, you know what I mean? So they won't allow me like a weapon, and I'd have to, if I get a knife, they'll like hide it like a knife for like stabbing or something, but I don't believe to kill anyways. So yeah, but there's like a limit with like with the Amerindians giving like orders and like punching or attacking or like whatever. So I guess this is what happened several years ago. I just drew the line, you could say. But anyways, so using the Hindu caste system, what is, because I've explained this, I believe there are 4 humans to who I am, for instance, based on what God allows in the 10 Commandments, who are actually what blood is to me. I guess the 10 Commandments and in the Torah, if you combine the two, if you have the understanding. So blood to me, in my opinion, is limited to, the rest are relatives, but limited to father, mother, who are to be honored. The 10 Commandments, God have explained, thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. So father and mother, myself, because I guess I would be first, but so myself, because I am blood to myself, I have blood in my body, I have to live, I have to no be extinct, I have to no be genocided, I have to, you know, I will not meet death. I will no allow death to happen to me, I will allow death to happen to different individuals than myself, and I will survive. And then 4th, we know that women have a menstrual cycle, and they have blood as wife. A wife would be a 4th type of blood to me, because it's from her, I guess, premenopausal and post-puberty state. You know, we have laws, of course, disproportionately at the moment, different than in the past. But so we're talking above 18 years old, above 18 years age, or maybe even 21 years age, because of the alcohol laws. And generally not, no limited to, wife doesn't have to be limited to under menopausal age, but there is a difference within what wife is. And I don't want to talk about concubinage or things of the sort at the moment, just at a different juncture, because I have to think, I have to use my mind to understand better. But wife having blood for me doesn't only mean in terms of menstrual cycle, because she also has blood in her body and everything. But yeah, so those are the four I consider blood. So I don't even consider, if I don't have children yet. I will, God willing, God allowing. But children I consider as water. Cousins I consider as water. I mean, in human language, I think they call them relatives, or some humans say family. But I consider them as water as opposed to blood. And blood is thicker than water. So children are water, cousins are water, brothers and sisters, siblings are water. Anyone a parent marries, again, like if my father were to have a different wife than my father, she's water at best. And then there's like a difference with water and water. But yes, I would be extremely angry. But any human is as water to me, and we are to understand humans. If I understand correctly, God has made us different in creation and how we are born and everything than any animal or any living organism. So I respect humans because we are made in God's image. All won't be different than God's image, being made in God's image, but at best as water. So the best scenario is water under the bridge, and blood is thicker than water. So for relatives, I have the higher I can, but the higher I can is very, very low how much I have for you. Especially because I have evidence of this. I'm in my late 30s now. So, and I should mention, humans think Africans are poor. This should be enlightening. Humans think Africans are poor. Okay. There are nations in Africa which there are women averaging 7 to 8 children born. If you're poor in any nation or any population, you are closer to what I am, where I could not afford a wife properly, and I could not afford properly, like in the USA, for instance, I couldn't afford a wife. I wasn't. I was like an unemployable type human, despite that I went to Harvard Law School, despite that I went to Columbia Law School, despite that I went to USC Gould School of Law, and I have a Bachelor of Arts with almost 2 majors from UCLA for like a decade and a half ago, approximately. But those are wealthy individuals, despite what you think. If they have, like, for instance, they're themselves, and they have a wife, and they have 8 children, 10 individuals, they're supporting at this era, at this time on Earth, 10 humans they're supporting, like a male is supporting, a male adult human. Let's say a husband to a wife, and let's say, speaking of water, but a father to like 8 children. This is many humans. This is a lot of humans at this time to be supporting, because at the least you have to give them water. You have to quench their thirst with water at the least, and you have to give them calories to not, like, they can become malnourished, but there's a time limit with malnourishment also. So at the very least, and usually there's housing, even if the housing is very poor, and usually there's some way to transport certain goods. Sorry, I have like pimples everywhere, and you can't see any muscle even when I flex, so sorry. But anyways, so Africans are generally wealthy humans to be having so many children, and this is part of what makes women, because women enjoy wealthy males. Women are different than males. Males will enjoy a woman for her, let's say, sexual appeal in terms of heterosexuality. Women do, of course, women are vain when they want to be a wife, but wealth is a part of vanity. So being wealthy is a part of vanity. And Africans are generally wealthy humans at the moment, and have been for many centuries. Even if you're going to say, no, there was slavery, it was a conscious conspiracy against the Jews to discredit the Jews, because in Egypt, because Egyptians are cousins, they're ham genome cousins, blood cousins of West African humans, West African like black humans. Let's say I'm not talking about like Lebanese who have immigrated to like Nigeria or whatever. Those are Shem individuals. So anyways, so there are like, there is a group which you will view, or you'll be able to understand as I continue to show you things, but I am in a different caste in the Hindu system than my father and his wife, who was my mother, his second wife, but the first wife was for legal purposes, to become a citizen. So let me explain, in the USA. So I'm in a different caste. I'm in a lower caste, or like a higher poverty caste, higher poor caste than my father. But there's a reason for this, and I'll explain in a moment. So give me just a single moment, and I will be right back and continue about the caste system and what our positions are. Okay, welcome back. Sorry, had to take a restroom break again. The urination is non-ending with the diabetes, so I need to lose weight. So if you would assist me. But so as you can see here, we have the air drying of my shirts, which I air dry my shirts. I really dislike to use a dryer, like a mechanical dryer, for my shirts. So I air dry. We used to have a rack for the air drying, to put the clothes on the rack when my mother was alive, when she was living. But I never went and purchased a new rack. I just felt like save the money, and I've been using the chairs for like, I think like 3 or 4 years, something like this. Okay, so first I want to talk about my father and his wife, my mother. And to do this, I should explain, my father is in the 4th class of the, if I understand correctly, of the ancient Hindu classification system, basically. He's a Shudra, if I understand. He's a laborer. And actually on my birth certificate, physically, it says my father is a laborer. In the United States of America, the state I was born in, it says laborer physically. I'm not lying, telling the truth. So my father has worked for approaching 51 years as a laborer, and then as a owner of a labor business in a slum type of fashion. But I'll explain. Sort of like and analogically compared to being like a slumlord. I don't want to say the Lord. I hate saying Lord to any human, because I believe Lord and God are reserved to God alone. But the word is like slumlord, but not housing. He's not a slumlord of housing. He rebuilds totally destroyed cars, motor vehicles, and takes parts off a different part and replaces them and fixes the body, fixes the mechanical situation, and then sells to humans who are sort of wealthier in the poor class. In like, if we talk about the Western understanding of like a three class system, sort of those who are like wealthier in the 3rd class, and because of the quality of what he's able to produce, generally he has like under a 3-digit, but like a 2-digit number of motor vehicle sort of scenario, usually, and like right around the middle of the 2 digits. So yes, so it's like a slumlord in housing, but in the USA, okay, not in like Brazil or like India, or like, I guess the Chinese are like a different scenario. I haven't been to China, or I haven't been to slums in the Philippines or Vietnam either, and I haven't been in the Middle East to like slums. There's a limit to how low I've gone in Asia, and in Europe. I think Europe is generally rich, so I don't know. I haven't been to like, I've only been, I guess, in the USA, of any nation and of any continent, North America, I've only been to the poor neighborhoods. So I've been to like only the wealthy neighborhoods of the earth, basically. But I grew up disproportionately around black skinned humans of West African descent, some Africans, and disproportionately like Hispanic Amerindians. And so there was also close by like a Southeast Asian and East Asian type of like neighborhood, like a Chinatown, and that this provided some like some connection to like a certain percentage, like a single digit percentage of Southeast Asians, and there were some like white European descended humans, but generally like limited Southeast Asian, South Asian, like Pakistani and Indian, very limited, and limited Middle Eastern also. But so there was like close by. So okay, so my father was a laborer for generally, and we're talking 51 years. He was a laborer for the Black and Hispanic humans. So we're like my father was or is like a sort of labor for the third class individuals. So in the Hindu system, the ancient Hindu system, he's a fourth class individual. He's a laborer. But we're sort of in like service to, we're not servants. Like I am a slave. My father is like a different scenario eventually, but he is like me. But so he worked a lot. So he serves the sort of in a very relatively poor, because the Confederacy is relatively poor. The former Confederacy is relatively poor. So he serves the third class, the sort of like upper middle class of the third class. I'm getting into too many, this is getting confusing, I guess. And this is like I'm using like a Hindu and a Western explanation. I'm not using like an Islamic explanation, which would go straight to like how much money does the guy have. Okay, but in where I live, housing is very cheap. I'm probably in like of the higher of the Confederacy states, the former Confederacy states, because of total like money, and like power, but it's still very cheap. So in the United States, which we're talking the most powerful economy on earth, and even per capita very high, like per individual head, per individual mind and hands. So we have like a housing scenario where our housing, like, we could easily get like $200,000, not when the economy is like decent. But remember, this is in the USA, the most powerful economy. So we can get like $200,000 for our house, which we've had and was built like, let's say like 50 years ago almost, with like a wood, sort of like disproportionately wood, a little bit of brick, but not like very like nice stone structure sort of thing. And I live in the like southern part of the former Confederacy, so we get like hurricanes and things like that in the Gulf of Mexico, and like flooding and things like this. So from a very hot state in terms of heat and temperature, but the housing is like, like under the structure, we're talking like under 2,000 square meters. So like around like 1,800, 1,700, 1,600 square meters. And so we're talking like 550 square, no, sorry, I must have spoken incorrectly. Around like 1,700 square feet and 550 square meters. I hope, sorry, I think I was saying meters. And the houses are really big in the former Confederacy compared to the rest of the USA generally. So like $200,000 can be gotten in like 2026, not easily, but like relatively easily. And then I'm just using pesos, Philippine pesos, because I don't remember Vietnamese dong correctly. I slipped my mind because I was only in Vietnam for I think 3 days or 4 days. I think it was 3 days. But I was in the Philippines for like 27 days. So in Philippine pesos, we're talking under 13 million pesos sort of scenario. Whereas like if this was in California, the house I have, we're talking like 60 or so million pesos, like pretty easily. In a like let's say the San Fernando Valley in California, so like 5 times less, basically, like something like 5 times less, because the quality would also be higher likely in California than in the former Confederacy or like in the Northeast. So like 5 times less than Los Angeles suburbs in the like sort of like poor areas. And if you're talking about like Compton, from what I've seen, like Compton and like South Central, those like disproportionately black, like poorer urban areas, our house is like about half the worth or like less than half the worth of those sort of houses. And I'm in like a sort of like higher of the poor housing sort of location. And we're just south of where many whites live, especially if you go toward the east. It gets like wealthier, and it's not like too distant. But basically, the situation is the blacks and the blacks and Hispanics have like disproportionate access to government employment, and in addition, they are those who are in the labor positions to serve both the government and white individuals. So my father, by his like mind and hands, and his strength of who he is, he's a very tough man, despite what it looks like for some individuals. But he worked as a laborer. So like a dishwasher was his first employment. He came as a student to the USA. And he got his visa like in the like 1970s, the late 1970s, to come to the USA as a student. He wanted to be a civil engineer, and he wanted to work in the Middle Eastern petroleum industry. But he was like very poor, and he was like homeless at a certain point because of the political trauma to many humans, I guess. And the issues that were going on in the 1970s, at the very end of the 1970s, and he was in the former Confederacy. So he was a dishwasher as his first job, his first employment, and sort of like like he worked very hard, like many hours, but he eventually became like a tow truck driver, and he eventually got into like cars, sort of thing, and like rebuilding like destroyed cars. Like we're talking like broken glass and like body damage and stuff like this to cars. But eventually he bought this house, and he bought land on which he built a he didn't build the structure. The structure was there. It's like very old structure, I think from like 1950s, like sheet metal, if you know what sheet metal is. Like I guess what they use in slums in some parts of the world to just like a sheet of like different than sheet rock, sheet metal, building disproportionately. And he, so like what a slumlord is to housing in the USA, but with integrity, obviously, sort of like the equivalent in what cars are in the former Confederacy, to serve those who work for the whites, who are wealthier generally, and they don't work for the whites as slaves. The blacks and the Amerindians are free humans, unlike who I am. But I'm a captured individual because of warfare, what was happening, and where I was. But where I was, meaning in the USA. Because they've been holocausting and homiciding the Middle Eastern since the Armenian genocide and the Holocaust in Europe, and like non-ending persecution, and then like 25 years almost exactly of warfare in the Middle East against the Shia Muslim, and it's going to involve the Sunni Muslims eventually, who are getting away with murder, you could say. But so yes, so my mother was an employee for like around like let's say 12 years in the Middle East. She was a government employee, sort of like in like a very rural, like imagine like Alabama, like agriculture department or something. She was like one of those like government type employees because her maternal grandfather was a very powerful human, so he got her the job she had in the capital of the province, not in the capital not in the capital of Thailand, I was going to say, or like the capital of Turkey or the capital of Tehran. But she got she had employment in an Alabama or like Mississippi type of state in the capital as like an agricultural type, or like connected to the like the construction of the roads sort of thing. And she was like like a secretary type human in that employment, in government employment. And then she was almost entirely, okay, so let's say entirely to say something. She was an entirely housewife to my father. My father, after she came to the USA, and my father was he came as a student, and he was like working like full time and trying to continue at like a junior college type level, and then he eventually got to like a 4-year university, but he wasn't able to complete the scenario, and he needed to stay in the USA, so he married like a white American woman. And my father, he was in appearance a white man, but a Middle Eastern Shem white man, like closer to what I am. But he was like so like my eyes, which you can't see, are like a darker hazel brown sort of thing, like green and brown. My father's a green, like a pale green-eyed human. And his mother, my grandmother, who recently passed away, she was not like the brightest eye color like some Europeans where like it flashes, but like in that range, like a very bright green-eyed Middle Eastern white-skinned woman. And she used to say something the equivalent of darn the USA sun, which made my son black, because my father is like a dark tan human. So like if I understand correctly, he's like darker than Chris Brown sort of color. Chris Brown, the singer and musician, but he was like a white man in terms of appearance earlier. And my mother's, there's a picture of my mother at the very end of the Mother's Day, the first Mother's Day after my mother passed away video I have early on. I think it's like the 5th video in order of what I have. So my mother's like whiter than I am, but I look darker when I don't shave my head and face. For some reason I get whiter when I shave my head and face entirely. So we're Shem, and so what I am is Shem and Dravidian. My father is like Shem. I don't know what his mother is, but I don't know if she's also Shem. But I'm Shem Japheth. But we're Middle Eastern Dravidian, which is what makes my mother so white, because she was like very light white for a Middle Eastern. Not like the whitest, but a very light color. Even in the South, in like the sun, she was still like, she would tan like a white-skinned human, white-skinned woman. Anyways, so my mother, for her entire live scenario while she was in the USA, she approximately didn't work in any instance, and she was a housewife. And after my father had, of course he had divorced the woman who got him the green card sort of scenario. But my parents have both been citizens, though my mother passed away. My parents have both been US citizens, I think for like, what is it, like 30 years or so? Yeah, like 30 years ago or like 25 years ago, they became US citizens. So they've been here for like a while. My father's been in the US since he was 21 years age, approximately. And he wasn't like a transfer student. It was a different scenario then. He was like older. He was held back like a couple of years in school when he was like younger, like in middle school, elementary school. So he was like a 21-year-old graduate, but he still got a visa. Yes, I am bragging. I am humble bragging, or whatever it is. He still got a visa to enter the United States university education system. Yes, from the Middle East in the 1970s, without all the technology we have now. Even like I didn't have like so much technology when I was a child compared to now. But so yes, and he was the only individual who made it to the USA until of his like entire extended like gene, and they're like many of them. My father is one of 7 siblings, a single of 7 siblings, and they were generally like 6, 7, 8 children, and they were doing pretty well, like the uncles and the aunts and whatever sort of scenario. Not everybody, of course, but there are like many of who he is. In like different states in the nation in the Middle East he was born. And he was the first to make it to the USA of any of them. And until less than a decade ago, only a single individual else had made it to the USA of the family. And that's like a cousin of mine, my aunt's son. He made it to a PhD program in the north of the USA, in like a pharmacy type scenario. So there's only been so far from like, I think like, depending on what you define as a relative, but like hundreds of humans to, okay, let me lie, like thousands of humans who are related to my father. In terms of genome, there have only been 2 individuals who, for university purposes, have made it to the United States. I think there are some in like a few in, or like something of the sort in Canada, but no in the United States. And my father is the only individual in the second millennia, so like earlier than the year 2000. So yes, basically no one from them had ever been there. And I am, if I understand correctly, I am possibly the only of any of them ever to go to an institution, to be admitted to and attend an institution like Harvard Law School. Like all won't on my father and mother's side have been at a comparable institution in terms of university education and like the level of mind and hands usually you need to be admitted. So anyways, yeah, so my father was like a 50-year laborer for like the third socioeconomic class, like third class minorities. So basically Black and Hispanic humans. He wasn't their servant, he was a laborer, which is very different. So this would be the fourth, the Shudra of the ancient Hindu caste system, is what my father was. And his wife, my mother, was also in this caste, but she didn't have to work as a laborer because we're in the USA and it's the year 2026 and there's like a lot of wealth in the USA. So yeah, so so my father is like a, if you want to say it in terms of like monetary thing, after having worked about 51 years, he is like a lower middle class, if you want to put it that way, in the socioeconomic understanding of the West. He's like a middle class human, sort of thing. But it's like we never did, and I'm an only child. He could only afford a single child. Though my mother had a miscarriage of a previous, what would be a sibling. So yes, he could only afford a child. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so I did like when I was, for instance, like 3 or 4 years old, fly to the Middle East with my mother on an airplane. I did when I was like, I think 10 years old and 12 years old, I did fly. And what I'm saying is the funding from my father was this much. I did fly when I was 10 and 12 years old to Hanover, Germany, to stay with my uncle and my father's brother, and also my father's sister, my aunt. And I had, when was the last? Yeah, and then like after I graduated from UCLA, I had flown to Europe like several times, and then I flew to the Middle East several times, and now I've flown to the Philippines and Vietnam. So I'm like, if my father is a laborer, it is that we are in the USA, and also he had worked for approximately 51 years at a rate of like, I would say on average 6 days a week. But you know, I would say like 6 days a week, on average, probably like 8 or 9 hours a day, maybe 10 hours a day. But probably closer to like 9 hours a day if you average it out. Because like as he got older and he made slightly more wealth, he got to the point where he didn't have to work like 12 hours a day, 13 hours a day sort of thing as a laborer. But so we are probably in what the laborers are on Earth, the entire Earth. At the moment, as far as my father and my mother, we're still probably Shudra, if I'm saying it correctly, Shudra, but in terms of my father and mother, but we are probably of the like top like 4% or 2% or 1% of Shudra on Earth. Yes, probably top 1%, but still Shudra as a fact, factually. Okay, now what am I? So let me take a break, and I will explain what I am. I'm just doing random like finger things now, so you can pause or whatever. Talk soon. All right, just to continue after my shortest break ever. So I wanted to describe, if I can even get back on track, I wanted to describe actually my socioeconomic status and any of the women who I've had like a relationship to in the past, especially disproportionately actually, if I would consider them like someone who I'd want to have as some individual, a woman I would want to have as a wife. And I'm saying wife, if you can hear me, like naive and wife, because I'm a Shia Muslim, Shia Muslimun. Anyways, so yeah, I'll make this a little quicker because, I have to get to different videos and do different things, doing laundry, as I already explained. Yep, okay. So, I am actually an untouchable, okay. And this was consciously understood to me very recently, or understood by me very recently, actually. But the process has been, I guess, I'm not sure, though possibly several decades. I'm in my late 30s, at least 14 years. But so I am in socioeconomic terms, where I am in the USA, I am unemployably disposed, or like humans predispose their disposition toward me, in terms of me being unemployably living, alive. But so what do I mean by this? So I have a bachelor's degree from UCLA. I'm possibly like I had a perfect GPA, and we're talking possibly like in the top, because I guess it gets into like who got an A plus versus an A. I am possibly, yes, I did say perfect GPA. So and I got a 176 on the LSAT for law school like 14 years ago or something, 15 years ago. On my first, I forgot to mention, on my first time, yes, taking the LSAT, I got a 176. So, yes, in my home city and state, I took the LSAT at a law school, law school classroom. Yes, a proctored test. It was in person proctored then. But anyways, so I'm an untouchable because with my bachelor's degree from UCLA in history and a minor in political science, which I've shown on the channel, and though I've been admitted to Harvard Law School and in attendance at Harvard Law School, Columbia Law School, and USC Gould School of Law, so in the state of Massachusetts, a law school, in the state of New York, a law school, in the state of California, a law school, though I didn't complete a semester ever, 5 separate academic years. So what happened is I have never been employed that I can remember. I'm trying to think. The best employment I've ever had was in New York City, in Little Italy, as like a caller, which is acting to be an Italian American guy who, when I had hair and I was in better shape, but who asked the passers-by to be a customer into the restaurant. This was the best employment I've ever had. I guess I've made a different video about what makes employment in my father and mother's business somewhat less than optimal because of an employee. Anyways, so that's in the graduation video, the graduation present video, or the graduation gift video, which I made. So anyways, yes, I'm trying to think what better employment. So I've done volunteer work at a courthouse in California in Los Angeles County, but to do legal answers usually to summons and complaints, basically. Usually housing, but some instances divorce, and some instances, what else, like a credit card, being sued for like a credit card sort of thing. I guess those were the three. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, those were the three major groups. Like, so unlawful detainers and answers to summons and complaint for like a credit card and like divorce. And I think once I did a, and this is partially where my like trouble was with, the person who was who leads that like volunteer organization's relation to what my volunteer organization group was. There was once where I did I began a summons and complaint for a landlord, and the overall attitude was, no, we're actually here to represent the poor human, the unlawful detainer. And it's like, okay, well, my father repossesses cars himself personally, and I've been with him to do such a thing. So yeah, make sure you, again, I should slow down. Make sure you are fair. Stop being unfair. There's a reason there's two sides to a court case in the United States, where I am of. Okay, so just making this clear. So as there is defense, there should be also prosecution, and as there is also prosecution, there should be defense in criminal cases. Because so I should bring this up. I'm talking about it socioeconomic, but if you don't have a prosecutor in the United States system, a prosecutor can dismiss your case, can dismiss you from like a felony, like 2 years in like a prison, forget like jail, like in a prison, a prosecutor can dismiss the case. So we need a prosecutor. We need a prosecutor to convince a judge to dismiss a case, to bring a case in terms of safety. Let's say a male rapes a female child, for instance. Well, in the USA, and as I understand law and the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, we cannot allow the human to be shot to death because he could be in a like messed up mental state, likely. I'm not saying he's like crazy necessarily, but in a correct mind and hands, adult male human would never rape a child, female or male. But we need to get the individual prosecuted safely through jail and into prison to be in a safe location where there are supposed to be corrections officers and things of the sort, relative to what humans are in different tools, to get the human to understand in the mind and in the hands. You could get, for instance, let's say, killed for raping a child. Okay? So we need prosecutors. We also, of course, love the fact that we have defense attorneys, like public defenders are really great. Okay, but also paid attorneys are really great. Anyways, so back to the socioeconomic thing. I'm an untouchable. I basically, now technology has grown. I have like the ability to do like, those gig apps, like deliver food from like organizations in like Illinois or like California in like free states, as opposed to this like Confederacy, the old Confederacy where I am. I can't get employment. I can find possibly employment if this war scenario stops dragging out, but I can find possibly employment in like a business actually, but we're talking like under like $14 an hour. We're talking a scenario if I'm getting 12 an hour for labor, they're paying me like the highest I think I've been offered in the state I am of, if I remember correctly, is actually like offered to begin the job, the employment is overnight. And this is recently, this is within the past few years, not like now, not like very, very recent, but recently, like overnight employment. And this was like an hour and 20-minute drive from my house, right? Just one way, hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes back, and that's without traffic. The employment was $13 an hour pre-tax. Okay. And like the wear and tear on the car and the gas on the car, you're talking about like after tax and expenses to get there and come back, you're talking about like a single digit number of dollars, which remains. Like we're talking like, I guess you could say, because, I have access to my father and mother's assistance, especially even after my mother has passed, her assistance. we're talking like a situation where like it's like gonna have been around under federal minimum wage, which I think is what, like $7.50, I think, in terms of the cost, because like the tires get like messed up on the car, the gasoline is expensive, the oil changes, like damage in some instances to like the body of the car insurance, because it's like 2.5 hours or more of driving a day. And that's like at night, and it's like sort of in rush hour to get there. And then it's like, you have to do the, hygienic thing. So you need access to, like, in my case, to like razors and soap and like whatnot, like deodorants, and certain shoes. And then you need to always have the laundry correct. Like, it's like so much that, like, and like the tax, of course, on the $13 an hour, depending on how much employment I have, even though it was like under full time, the offer. But it's like we're talking like, I'm not sure, but like $9, $8, $7 an hour sort of thing at best. And it's like, okay, I've tried to disclose that I have a Bachelor of Arts completed, and I think I've mentioned law schools. I've tried not disclosing my Bachelor of Arts. I've been in shape. I've been like out of shape. I've been low body fat percentage number. I've been high body fat percentage number. I've been like, it's like literally September 11th happened, and now it's like October 7th. September 11th happened, and I'm in the old Confederacy, and my father is a laborer who supplies like high quality, very high quality, the higher quality you would imagine, but like the equivalent of like very high quality slum housing in the USA, like the higher quality, basically, cars, okay, to Black and Hispanic humans who do service. So I can't even get employment, though I haven't formally applied, for like sanitation, and like janitorial work, because they're too high. Like I wanted to, when my mother was passing, I felt like I had an urge to the hospital she actually passed away in like an important medical center. I wanted to work as a janitor. I thought it would be like, it was like sort of like there's like a song, like music about like a janitor guy or something of the sort, who's like a genius, let's say. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can do that. And then I realized like I didn't pursue it, but it's like, they're not gonna hire me to make like what, like, I'm not sure, like 15, 16 an hour or possibly more with like benefits and everything. So, I'm basically in like, a free state, Illinois or California will give me like under federal minimum wage, to deliver food and destroy my car and sit in a car instead of standing, and at least being like, because standing is better for your, your cardiovascular health than to sit repeatedly and be sedentary. Generally, in most cases, I'm not talking about like a death march like the Armenians, please, in the Armenian genocide. This isn't what I'm referring to. But so I don't get hired for Hispanic type jobs because there is a racial issue, but I don't get hired for Hispanic type jobs. I don't get hired for Black type jobs, white type jobs. Just forget it. I can't even get to the point where I'm serving, in terms of like, not like I'm their servant, but like a server of disproportionately white humans. And with Black humans, I have repeated, like, they attack who I am and actually conflict. So this becomes an issue also. So I can't be in a location, like I have to remain unemployed because they may begin to like arrive in like mass numbers and make like at best, and it isn't a complaint, it isn't a war, but they, it's like I have to count my time and get out sort of scenario. And whites or white European descendant humans are the same. And there's like by Asians, like no, or like very little assistance in terms of employment also, though I would mention there is of the Jews, an individual who was willing to employ me, very nice man, but it was also a driving job where you have to sit and drive repeatedly and like interstate sort of thing. So to get like a job as like at a grocery store as a stalker of like putting the you talk about in is it Tagalog or is it Malay, or both, where it's puti is white. So I can't even put the like gross, like I'm like a tall strong man. I'm not like I'm not like 6'7" or 6'9", but I'm like just under 6'2", and I'm strong physically compared to like most humans. Like overall, I'm weak at the moment, but I'm generally a strong human and large human, for what it is in 2026. Like I'm above average height in every nation, and yeah, I'll just leave the comment about above average to this at the moment. But and like I'm above average strength in every nation. All won't have a nation where I'm like below average, under average in terms of strength. I guess possibly the Vatican. This could be the only exception because they have like security disproportionately who are really strong, but I don't know. But even with training, there's no nation ever which could have at the moment be like where I'm like below average or under average in terms of strength. So I can't even get a job stocking groceries in a big grocery store. I can't get a job as like a greeter. I'm like incapable, unaware what to do to get a cashier type job. So I can have, for instance, recourse to like a bank. I've applied to working in banks since like 14 years ago, like many years ago. Never an offer. Even like a second interview was like a really big deal, and that was in like a free state where I had like a bachelor, so it was in California, so I have a Bachelor of Arts there. Several states I've applied in like New York State, California, Texas, different states, basically like in the Confederacy, out of the Confederacy, and in in a state, California, which wasn't involved then in this sort of issue. So I've tried in many states. No capability to get a job in like a bank, and yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel like this always feels like deja vu, but so I'm like an untouchable. It would get to the point where I would be making a graven image onto myself. The Ten Commandments, God have commanded, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image." So this is a graven image. I'd possibly have to get to the point where I'd be like a mortician or something. Not even like a mortician, but even that requires too much like educational this and that and the other and another. So yeah, the only thing is when it comes to like, and even like law, I would bet you they would want me to just be like a judge or like a prosecutor or a defense attorney involved in, for instance, Texas, like death penalty, like execution, capital punishment law. Because like who wants to like literally put humans to death and like be involved in the legal system of like a former Confederacy state, could possibly be a Confederacy state, while all these wars are happening like non-ending, and it's like the Holocaust happened and the Armenian genocide and this and that. They just would give me, like as like a Harvard Law graduate, they would hope, I would bet, they would hope I would get the type of job because who's religious and wants to kill in executions and is like the higher correct. I don't want to, I used to misunderstand this concept, but I don't want to kill. I didn't understand the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill. So I cannot use the law degree, the Juris Doctor. And being just is different than being like disproportionately capable or whatever it is, whatever actually is the understanding. But so it's like if I get like a very high university education and understanding, and like literally the humans in the state I'm in or like in the USA, they like their ability is like very low percentage of humans even are actually capable to do the work, then they'll employ me at like a high middle class level. Okay, but it's like we're talking like something like a decade to 2 decades of university education, and I'm in my late 30s, and it's like I'm a Shia Muslim, and I've explained this. I'm a Musalmun, so I'm opposed to warfare. I'm opposed to Holocaust. I'm opposed to genocide. and I believe alone to worship in God. So I don't even know how I feel about the Constitution of the USA separating church and state. I mean, I do have an understanding, but I need a higher understanding. I need more time, basically, to understand. So it's like I am as an untouchable at like the higher level I could possibly be in what the untouchables are, like the higher there has been on earth. But I am in fact an untouchable. I'm like a human who, it's just the advancement of society and the fact that I'm of the USA and the advancement of humans in general, and disproportionately religious understanding, what the Jews have done, what Jesus Christ has done, what Muhammad, what Ali, different prophets, Moses, of course. Since Adam and Eve, humans have been, I want to throw this word in, struggling. They've had their Kampf, I guess, to use some German. Mein Kampf has been, humans have struggled, so I am like treated like a king. Like, look at my situation. But yes, so I am treated like a king, but I am essentially an untouchable. And it's like too many decades. So even women no longer will enjoy at like a reasonable, it's like an unreasonable amount of time earlier than I can without having like a formal like employment scenario. I have recourse to even courting in the USA. And it is like a socioeconomic situation, because had I, for instance, become a Harvard Law graduate with a Juris Doctor, and were I to be on track to become like a judge, for instance, I would have a wife scenario of like, there's like no continent of women aside, I guess, Antarctica, but no continent of women where I wouldn't have been able to have like a single wife, at the least. But in the scenario there. But if I am defiant, let's say, if I am uncontrollable, like I'm such an uncontrollable guy on Earth, even though I refuse to kill, though those humans refuse to not kill, or it's not kill, they refuse to remain from killing or whatever. A rejoinder is different. Anyways, so I just need to work on my English, because my English is still limited compared to what I would enjoy. But so in terms of wife, so I mentioned before your father, or like my father, my mother, myself, out of order, but myself, my father, my mother, and wife, who have what I consider to be blood to who I am. The situation with wife is normally, disproportionately, the women have to be educated in terms of, I guess, in terms of their feelings toward having like a type of relationship toward me. So even if they aren't like a high level university education, like let's say like a PhD scenario, which I haven't had experience with, I guess, I'm sure. But it's usually they're educated women who have like any type of relationship to me. So like women who are less in need of being educated, it's like very little relationship will be able to occur, or even conversation. So it's like basically it's turning into a scenario. When I say I'm a slave, it's like the women will go off with the free humans who, enslave us. And, it's same type, what it was, similar, though, I'm the higher time sort of tortured with this. But it's like the slave master is the better scenario, and the slave isn't. And the slave is usually denigrated. And like I said, I've been shot at. I've been punched, I've been choked from behind, like a headlock from behind, surprise choking, I guess, which I was capable to get out of, because I guess you just use your chin or something. So there's, yes, I've been shot at. I'm not sure if I've been poisoned. Not sure. I feel like I've been poisoned, but like at a very low level, in like a, I guess sort of like a Asia type of restaurant. Anyways, so yeah, basically I'm excluded of the 4 caste systems. And I guess my father is in the 4th caste. I forgot the name. Has a U and it begins, I think, with an SH. I have to look again. But I'm treated like an untouchable, and the women, I feel like I've made this video in the past, but the women who I have any type of relationship to, where it would be the woman wants to be a wife to who I am, or I want the woman to be a wife, or anything. I'm not taking concubines at the moment, but so it's generally, and this is, remember, when we have like nearly 8.5 billion humans, and I'm in the USA, where like I think I've already shown in the video, but I'm recording it after. We have access to like very good fruits, very good vegetables, very good food at affordable prices. It's expensive, but it's still affordable compared to much of the world, compared to how much humans are paid. But it's still like the women have to have like an education to, I guess, not be like bombarded if they get near me, to be like peeled off by like a different guy. And it's still like I'm a victim of like what adultery is. I'm still a victim of like literally, what do you want? What like okay, let me be like real with you. You want me to be the president of the United States for you to like think like I'm supposed to court you? Like, let's be honest. Like I'm gonna like die if I have to like drive to a McDonald's to have the experience of like she wants to just go with me to like the McDonald's, and you have to take her to like, I have to literally fly intercontinental to like a different continent to get humans to not like start preying on me where I'm of. And it's like getting tiring. And it's like, I'm aware of law, but I'm the untouchable, but I don't think you are necessarily the untouchable. With the wife scenario, if you know what I mean. I'm not talking about like beating my wife actually, but I mean, like, you know, is it sexual assault, like sexual touching, like unwanted sexual touching? So my like, I guess I've gotten so fat, my jolly stomach like shakes when I laugh. Ha 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 ha. It was like just shaking. It was going like ta 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 when I was like laughing. But yes, anyways, just enjoy. So this is the sort of scenario I have. I think I'm repeating videos now because I have a problem with like repeating too much. But let me get on to like a different video soon. And let me show you some of the fruits I got to remember the Sabbath day in August. I guess it was August 8th, the Sabbath day. Thank you. Bye.